Hello,
You're welcome.
everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Faces of Projects, where we explore stories, leadership, experiences, and ideal shaping, successful projects across Nigeria and Africa at large. My name is Hawabukar Kumshi, and I'm your host. I am delighted to have you all join Faces of Project today. At just the regular drill at Faces of Projects, we believe every project tells a story, not just successful ones, but also the lesson learned, the decisions, the leadership, and the system behind the outcome. Today's conversation is, one many projects professionals, development practitioners, government officials, and even business leaders can relate to. Our topic is the outbreak model, the hidden patterns behind failed projects in Nigeria. Why do so many projects struggle despite good intentions, funding, and also the technical expertise? Uh, are these failure random? Are these a recognizable pattern? More importantly, how can we identify this pattern early enough to prevent failure? To help us unpack these important questions, I am pleased to welcome Dr. Kayode Oshinubi. He is a biostatistician, data modeler, and a founder Black in Mathematics Association in United States of America. Dr. Oshinobi, thank you so much for joining us. We are really pleased to have you with us
Yeah,
today.
thank
And
you for having me.
please, the floor is
I'm
yours.
glad.
You can introduce yourself. I think maybe I didn't give the introduction maybe the way you want. You can actually sell yourself, tell us who you are and why we should listen to you today. Over to you, please, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And nice to meet you, Awa. And I'm glad to be here to come and speak to you and also the audience, to answer several questions from the
Yeah.
audience. I'm a researcher, I'm a scientist, I'm a mathematician, an applied mathematician. I'm also an ecologist, I'm a biostatistician. I'm a very multidisciplinary person. And I'm currently in the United States working with the Northern Arizona University, where I'm working on disease model forecasting of disease to guide government policy. We learn a lot from COVID. So how can we protect ourselves from emerging and reemerging epidemics?
Mm,
So that's what I do, and how to make our world safer, having this public health security. So that's what I do. I did my PhD in France. So I did my bachelor's and my master's in Nigeria. So I'm the son of the soil. So when I speak about Nigeria, I'm speaking from
mm,
a place of experience because I've spent most of my
yeah.
life in Nigeria before I traveled. Before I traveled about 7 years ago. So yeah, I spent most of my adult life in Nigeria. And I lectured. I've mentored people, and I still do that. I still do a lot of mentoring work across the globe, and and also in Nigeria and also in the United States. And also, I'm the co-founder of Black in Mathematics. Like you have rightly said, Black in Mathematics is math, Africa focused, basically. So our members span to East, majorly East and West. Um, Africa, and yeah, we also have members from South Africa. And what we do is to build a community of mathematicians, where we come together to do
Yeah.
research to solve local problems, also to solve global problems. So while I'm also the co-founder, I'm also the head of the research team. So I coordinate the research team of Black in Mathematics, where we work on different diseases that are endemic in Africa, like malaria. We work on all those kind of diseases. We also look into some social economic issues like crime,
Mm,
how crime is spreading across the globe, issues of drug and also drug trafficking. So we also have some things like that work on that. So this is a brief introduction about me. I can continue to talk and talk. I know we have limited time so that we can, go into the
Yeah.
business of the day. Thank you, and I'm happy to be here. Sincerely, I'm always
Thank
passionate
you.
to speak about Nigeria and also to speak about our continent and also to speak on global issues.
Yeah, thank you so much. I believe I'm also glad to have you and also our audience. I'm sure they are glad to have you because as a mathematician, I believe we're going to work with datas, and
Yeah,
facts,
yeah,
definitely. So for us to delve into our discussion, one thing I find fascinating is about when a project it fails, we mostly feel like, oh, it's okay, it's a one-time crash, you understand. Like there wasn't stages to where the to the point where the project fails, right? And
yeah.
your work suggests that this is like an outbreak. A project failure is like an outbreak. There are stages and all. So could you explain what the outbreak model is and what inspired you to develop this way of thinking?
Yeah, thank you. The outbreak model started, when I was doing my PhD. I did my PhD around COVID-19
Okay.
pandemic, where, like you have said, there is failures across the globe. Even the best country in the world,
Mm,
fails. There was so many deaths recorded in the United States, so many deaths recorded in Europe, despite the fact that they have all the elements, they have all the
mm,
technology, they have all the, equipment, and still, basically, and that also, the issue also hosted out, the current, which is the current president of the United States now, the then president, of the United States. People, could not vote for him for the second time because they felt that, oh, perhaps he didn't handle the pandemic, the very well. So that was what motivated me, to develop model. And my PhD thesis, focused more on outbreak and epidemics, disease modeling, and that's what I currently do now. So that events that happen across the globe during the late 2019 and early 2020, motivated me to, to go into that, to delve into that, looking at, a lot of systematic, failures, you know, most especially, what especially then I was in Europe, what we experienced then was that there was not enough bed space, there was no enough ventilators, there was, it was just chaotic. There was no in fact, in the United States, at some point, they were out of. If you, I don't know, maybe you saw the video. They were even out of just toilet papers. It was just as if nobody was prepared. So preparation, and that was what I said in my introduction. Preparing for the future, preparing for um, even though sometimes circumstances, things, happened, when we don't even plan it, but learning from our mistake. You also said it in the introduction. The lesson learned. I remember that I wrote an article. If you go online, you see that my article, lesson learned, from the COVID-19 pandemic. So which I wrote with some researchers in Europe and also in Israel. So my motivation was basically during this time that we had this systematic failure across the globe, that a lot of people, a lot of citizens were disappointed about what happened. So that was what motivated me, to develop this model that incorporated all factors, factors about hospitals, factors about bed, hospital bed, factors about socioeconomic, how the Europe, the United States, how Africa, reacted to that, perhaps based on our economic status. I put it into those factors. Access to healthcare. Um, Also considering some rural and urban areas, considering developed and non-developed countries. So looking at all these factors, that was what my model really look into.
That's so interesting, Doctor. Many organizations begin to, troubleshoot only when the project has, become a failure, right?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Yes. So from yes, it's the network was just kind of glitchy from my end. So
Okay.
I'm really interested to for us to go into the dive deep. But before we get to that, I would like to know at what point do you think leaders should start paying attention to when projects is forecasting failure? But
Yeah.
just as you've mentioned in yes, just as you've mentioned during COVID-19, there were no contingency at all. So at what point do you think we should start studying that, oh, this is leading to a failure?
There are different strata to this issue. The way government
Hmm.
approach things is different from the way private sector approach it. Let me give you an instance, and I know you heard about it. Recently, the United States went to space. They wove around the moon. There was a flight they did around the moon. It took them years to implement that. But if you look at Elon Musk, the way he approached um, space exploration is different. They want to take off like a few weeks ago. They wanted to take off, the thing crashed. They will start all over again. That's the way private sector. They just want to deploy and deploy. But to answer your questions, to be straightforward with the answer to your question, with based on that background, is that what really happened is that we must first of all do a kind of simulation of that event, and that's what I do mostly in my science, where before you deploy, the real world event, you do a kind of scenario simulation. If we do it this way, what will happen? If we do it that way, what will happen? If we include this variable, if we include these factors, what will happen? You do a kind of simulation, and that helps us, to be able to detect some of the outliers, some of the failures, some of the uh, incidents that can happen in that kind of scenario. So one of the things we must learn to do in our project, even though failure is part of life, let's be realistic. You know, in fact, everything can be looking so well on paper, uh, on everything, on every metrics. It can be looking very well, and then it
But
will
do
still
you
fail.
think
But
these are for circumstance that we anticipate? But when a situation is, like a natural disaster, something that just happens, without us planning it, like just like you've mentioned, COVID-19, Ebola, you understand? Let's talk for instance, there are flash floods. These are things that we don't plan for, or
mm,
or a funding for an organization to implement a project. Do you think that in disease outbreak like Ebola, virus outbreak like Ebola, coronavirus, or a flash flood, or a project that is being funded by a donor, we have the luxury of simulation? Because in those terms of the virus outbreak, we are not even ready for it. We didn't even know that it was going to happen. And then in funded projects, the funding is constrained. Yeah,
yeah,
every money is budgeted. So do you
mm.
think we have the funding and also the time for simulations?
Yeah, we do, we do. If we want to do it as if Nigeria specifically, uh, we have it. But most time we don't want to do the right thing. You know that. Most time, corruption, the corruption has it deep into us, and most time we want to do something so that perhaps in 2 years again we can redo those things. Currently, they are rewarding the Lagos Ibadan Expressway. It was done. How are you agree with me? It was done just recently by Buhari administration, but now they've rewarded the contract again to do. So we have the resources. Of course, I know that we are low income. we are developing country. We are not developed country. We are developing country, but we have the capacity. Let me give you an instance. Let's assume, okay, how do you think we have learned from COVID? We have learned from Ebola. If antivirus, we know about, let's say, a form of antivirus that want to happen, does that mean that we are not going to be prepared? With all the lessons we have learned from all other diseases. Recently, I did a simulation. I and a colleague in Japan, we did a simulation that let's assume that there's a flu outbreak in Nigeria, or there's a flu season that is terrible in Nigeria. We normally have flu in Nigeria, but we don't focus on it. But what we did in that simulation is that let's assume that the way United States normally have a flu season. So let's assume that we have that in Nigeria. What will happen? You understand? So we did that kind of simulation with with different scenarios. So we have the capacity and we have the brain. Of course, we are experiencing some kind of brain drain now, but we have that brain to one of the best people that are doing things globally. They're Nigerians. So we have the capacity and the power, the human power rather, to do all of this. We have the science, we have the knowledge, we have the funding to a large extent, to of course we cannot really like I always tell people, when we see something that is bad, if there's a flooding in Florida, and there's flooding in Lagos, we'll say, it happened in Florida. But if there are good things that are happening here, good network code, good airports, good system, we don't say that, we want to match up to that. But if it's a disaster, we'll say, if flooding normally happens in
Don't you
Lagos.
think that is because we are still a developing nation?
Yeah, it's part of it. That's why I'm trying to be careful, because I know that
Yeah,
we don't have luxury of resources. We are still a
yeah.
developing nation, so we need to take into consideration that factor, that we are still a developing nation. So to conclude that part of your question, I think
Mm,
if we don't want to next tomorrow, we want to go and redo this, we want to go and do
mm,
this. Why can't we focus on it and have quality things deployed by doing a kind of a scenario simulation. I just give you an example. If how can we be prepared for uh, a terrible outbreak? We can do a kind of simulation. Our public health NCDC can do a kind of simulation, and also the local public health jurisdiction. Okay, if we have, let's assume that this happen, can we continue? So with our little resources, I think we can still do some things. And I know Nigerians are always ready to to volunteer. If we say that, community, because of this, to save your life. No, nobody want to die in Nigeria. you know I'm a Nigerian too, so none of us want to die. We like our life, we like enjoyment a lot, especially Lagosians, or the southwest, or, so if you can tell me that,
I
we need human support.
I
Perhaps
agree.
we want to do some
Mm,
questionnaire. You understand? We want to do some
mm,
sampling, and we need some human to just fill in some. If you tell people that, we want to prevent your community, perhaps from this and all of that, we'll be able to curtail all of this. And I think that's the kind of thing we should try and do. Also in Lagos. Lagos, we are experiencing, when it rains badly, uh, there's flooding everywhere, and I think that issue can be curtailed to a larger extent. I know, like you have said, disasters happen all over the world that you don't plan for. But there are some things, if you look at the Lagos scenario, you know that a lot of human factors and a lot of some government systematic failure
mm.
not doing their job is part of it. Because if there are proper drainage system in such a way that people cannot block it, they cannot go and be pouring, uh, let me tell you this. Sometimes I wonder where the
Yeah.
drainage system is here. you know, I hardly see gutters. I wonder where they, because they have channeled it properly. But regardless, there can be flooding in some places, but that will be due to some unplanned circumstance. So we can. I strongly believe that we have, because we are a developing nation, we have some little resources that we can
The,
deploy, to come some of the issues we are facing.
Thank you, Dr. Kayode. I think you've said two things that caught my attention. That is regarding repetition of projects and also um, questionnaire. One, I would want you to, reiterate on these two things when you said, deliberately you feel like projects are being awarded and then they would finish implementing the project and then in next 2 years you would see that same thing has been awarded to another another contractor to repeat the same thing. Do you think that is lack of political will or lack of, accountability? And also when you said, Nigerians don't want to die, because I really want us to be very realistic in this conversation when we say that, we can just do a GoFundMe to get questionnaire. After the questionnaire, what we're getting is data, right? And
Yes.
don't you feel like most project managers just get data for reporting sake, not because they really want to analyze and then come up with a solution with the data? Because and just as you said, we're being careful with what we said, what we say here. I feel like in where I am currently, data mostly is just for reporting, is just to source more funding rather than use it to analyze the data, find a solution, and implement a project with those data, right? So, do you think we can be intentional, or what will you say? How would project managers be intentional in terms of, using data to solve a problem rather than just for reporting sake? And also, in terms of the repetition of same projects, is it lack of governance and sorry, lack of accountability and lack of political will, from the government? Or do you think that we just lack structure, you understand, and we don't have a strong system to do that? Yeah.
Strong institution builds a nation. We must develop
Mhm.
strong institutions to ensure that uh, the right things are done, and strong institutions are built by people. The citizens have their part to do, and the government also have their part to do. And if we have strong institutions, it's going to curb the excesses of the people and also the excesses of the government. I like using the United States as an example. No matter what the president wants to do, they will take him to court. The court will straighten, will cut his excesses. So that's an arm of government that people have, a strong belief in. The legislators, especially when you have an opposition majority, they will ensure that the head of the government is doing the right thing. So having strong institutions helps. And if we have strong institutions, good procurement department or ministry or agency in a particular ministry will help. And that will ensure, like perhaps, quality assurance. We just talk about the roles that are being awarded. So people will have look at it. There was a day I saw the Minister of Works. You know, it- thank God we have an engineer, who knows a lot about civil engineering as current Minister of Works. He visited one road, and all the materials they used were terrible. And this will be a ripple effect on everybody. And what's the cause of that? Because the contractor need to settle part of the money, the contractor that is supposed to deploy to the contract needs to use it to settle some people, bribe some people and all of that. So, but if we have a good system where our procurement, quality assurance, every agency of government is doing their job, and we have good people in those places, because it is people that can build a place. And one thing let me say this point before it flips up my head. One thing I've always said is that we must not build an agency or institution around someone. Let me give you an example. Like NAFDAC, when Dora was there, it was different. Dora Quinley, it was different. So we built the institution around not having a system, uh, you know, that that we, even if the head of agency changes, it will still be a strong institution. You get what I mean? Now, NDLEA is a very strong institution in Nigeria as we speak. Because Buba Marwa is heading it. If Buba Marwa lives there today, what will happen? So we must not build institution around individual.
Sorry, doctor, to
Must
cut in.
build.
Don't you think it's the leadership? You understand, those in power. When Dora was in power, she wasn't actually letting people around her also take charge. You understand? And also now that Buba Marwa is the head of NDLEA, he also wants to take credit and take charge of every decision there. So they don't actually groom people around. You know, in the country we are now,
It is not.
where when you are in power.
How I have not. You didn't get my point. That's why we must not build institution around people. If
Yeah.
we are the next NDLEA, it should still be as strong as if Bupa Marwa is the head. That's why we must build.
So how can we achieve that? That's my point. My point is, how can we achieve?
By driving policy, driving legislations that will make those institutions,
Okay.
work on its own.
Okay.
Okay, let's take NAFDAC for an example, as an example rather. We must make laws that will make sure that if you involve anybody involved in perhaps when people don't see consequences for some things, one of the laws we can make is to strengthen the consequences of selling fake drugs, distributing fake drugs. We must have that legislation. Okay, let's go to NDLEA. We must buy some equipment that ordinarily, if you are passing through, we use TSA here. I've forgotten what we use. The immigration in Lagos. When you are passing, it will be able to, nobody will be able to bypass the system. You understand? And when you have cameras are well installed, their surveillance. It's about for like NDLEA and this work with also NAFDAC. It's all about surveillance. When we deploy more surveillance, strong surveillance system, that will help. Let's talk about the police. For instance, if you don't want the police to be taking bribe again, you can introduce body cam, which helps. And they are thinking about it in Lagos.
Do you think we are ready for that? Do you think the country is ready for that?
That's how we are developing. Lagos is thinking about it. Lagos is thinking about the body cam thing. Can you now see how that these are putting system in place that if I am the IG of police, I don't need to be doing too much. The system will work on its own. So our system must be able to work regardless of who is heading it. So we must not build institution around Buba Marwa, around Dora Akoili, around no. We must be able to build in legislation, proper surveillance. And of course, good people is important because implementation is also important. Having good heads, that also works. But it must not just be only that. That when Kayode is the jam registrar, Oloyede is leaving jam, he left yesterday. Oloyede as jam registrar. The new guy is there now. Things that Oloyede have achieved or whatever should still be able to continue regardless of what the head can just come is that your own style of leadership is different from mine. What the head can just come to do is to bring in more ideas, but the system will continue to work regardless of whoever is the head.
So, Dr. Kayode, I wish we have a lot of time. I have a lot of questions for you.
Data issue. I think I want to speak about that data.
Yes, I think we have more. I would add Jara for you, like 15 more minutes. I am currently in Adamawa State in Nigeria, and I'm in a state. I don't want to call names or call any institution and organization, just beverage company, communications company, and also an education institution by a single person. And trust me, each and every of these company or organization has failed. It has not publicly, been out there that it's a failed organization, but we've seen it how drastically these organizations or institutions or companies have lost staff have stopped producing what they are producing, have stopped doing what they are doing previously, that is, you are a mathematician, at the end of the day is going to be equals to failure, right? So, and we've spoken to a lot of people in terms of, having a sustainable change. This country, a lot of people out there are doing 1+1 on a daily to see how Nigeria can move. I would want you to just articulate your words in few words. Just tell me realistically, if you want to move Nigeria from where it is currently to have from having a lot of failed projects to having a successful project, from the governance structure down, to the to the minor projects we are having. What are the practical way we should follow, please?
Practical way we should follow. Number one, um, one of the things, let's I will always attach examples to all of this. Let's take TED fund for instance. I've seen people, they get TED funds and then they don't do the research. Some will go and build house, some will go and use it to travel. And it is because we don't have a system where people don't just have asset, you don't just give people the money. No. A situation whereby we ensure that we put in structures that we checkmate whatever everybody is doing. And that structure is like an audit, strengthening our audit system. That's a realistic way of ensuring that a project doesn't fail. And let me give you an example. When you are given a 1 million project to do in Nigeria, you don't just give the money, to the person doing it. Each of these projects must be attached, must be attached to a particular thing they want to do. Oh, we want to organize a conference. Then you have a budget for that conference. Then that money will be disbursed to those that want to point this, those that want to do that. So we must have a strong, procurement, audit system and our finance system to checkmate that people are doing what they are supposed to do at the right time based on their project specifications. And this will also help us, to deliver on those projects we want to do, and will not have failed project. And there are major two key factors to make sure that our project doesn't fail. We must have great leaders and we must also have great followers. It is these two works together. As a leader, okay, you want to do a road, you put laborers there. The laborers are not thinking on how to steal cement. They are not thinking of how to steal the materials. So good people, great leaders, great followers also help, to and we must have this sense of, of always doing the right thing. And that's I think one of the problem we're having. The current place I am now, the system is built on trust. And that's why you can have a delivery. They'll put it in your at your doorstep outside, and nobody will go and pick it there. You can't try it in some places. They'll go and steal. So we must ensure that we have, great people in leadership positions, and also we as followers too. We also have our part to do by also doing the right thing. Yeah, we don't do bills. You always see the news. Most of our railway tracks, people go there to go and steal the tracks. And has that project failed? Somehow it has failed. Somehow, because it is built. Look at Abuja Kaduna Railway. It is built to help people. It was constructed. They did it. They commissioned it. It was running. But along the way, one day a train was going and then the train lost track. But what happened? Part of the track has been stolen. That's systematically that project has failed. So as individuals too, we must do our part. And that takes me back to surveillance. And to make project work, surveillance is very important. If uh, if we have surveillance system around our railway tracks where we can monitor what is going on our railway tracks, it will not make that project to fail. So crucial point I have made today: must have good procurement agency, good accounting agency, good finance agency, good surveillance system, great people, great leaders. All of this work together so that projects will not fail in any. And these are the realistic way to go about it. And the last thing, the political will, political will. Push the, yeah. Uh, but Awa, let me ask you this question. Don't you think that the leaders come from the followers? The leaders don't just jump. Followers. The now leader, they were once followers. So so yeah, we have no. I'm not arguing with you. We have a leadership problem. We have a strong leadership problem. Yeah, yeah, you're right. It's hard. hmm Number one is we have to have a good electoral system. A good electoral system where um, you can't manipulate your way. You can't bribe people, to vote for you. You can't just. Awa, are you still there? Okay, because your video freeze. Okay. So you can't manipulate elections. We have good judiciary system. We have a system where we can vote in um, different political parties or even opposition in our national assembly. If our national assembly is weak, our judiciary system is weak, then the executive system will be busy misbehave, and that's what we're having now. The current president have the the national assembly in his pocket. Whatever it takes there is yes. They don't query it. The judiciary, well, they are doing their best, but well, it's still where we saw, the minister of FCT building houses for judges. Don't you think that that can bias them? So we shouldn't have that kind of system, where we have three arms of government. The other two are weak, or they are dancing to the tune of the president. I'm not saying that everything should be no, 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 no. We should be able to, to consolidate, to help the president to achieve his goals. But regardless, we must have a situation whereby we can say no, we can checkmate the president. So we don't have that check and balances. That check and balance is not there when our National Assembly and judiciary are, they are basically dancing to the tune of the president. So we need to to restructure that system where uh, our electoral our elections rather can be easily manipulated, and that's why we observe that things are just going around some set of people. And I also have met this message for Nigerians too. When they come to you with 10,000, why can't you just reject it and say that you want to vote your conscience? You want to do the right thing for the first time to ensure that we have good governance. And then we have to also change the system where the president is the one, appointing the INEC head. And we have to also separate the office of the Attorney General from the Minister of Justice. And I think that will also help our system. That's one of the things I think can strengthen our leadership system in such a way that we will not have leaders that are not ready to do the right thing, leaders that don't want to ensure that our country work for all, not just for some selected few. So that's those are the kind of ways we can strengthen if all of these system are in place. You said, like you have said, that our financing procurement, the people are ready. We don't want to take bribes. We must put in place measures where our electoral system are not manipulated. There are consequences for everything. Uh, we have a former governor today that is just the person of Yaya Bello, who is the former governor of Kogi State, that has not I know his case. I know his case is in court. I know his case is in court, but yeah, but we are seeing that he's kind of trying to beat the system. So we must have a system where somebody like that cannot beat the system. When you are summoned, when you are summoned by the court, you are summoned by the EFCC, you can be you can be charged for contempt. So people must see that there are consequences for any actions they take in and out of office. Awa, please go ahead. Um, no, apart from mathematics and epidemic model, you can invite me again to come and talk about politics. I'm a very political person. Yeah, and yeah. When I was in Nigeria, too, I was doing what we call Youth Arise initiative. I was the head of youth. We're going around the country to encourage youth to participate in. Yeah. So you can another time you can call me, for political discussions. Maybe because of your network, maybe we can try to round up because your video is freeze, and I don't think that's good for the audience. I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you. Maybe we should just maybe. Yeah, one of yeah, we have a data problem in our country. There was a time I wrote to SCDC for data, and nobody was really responding. So we have data problem. It's not that we don't really have the data, but we have data issues. Data issue. What I mean by data issue is that access to data. You should be able to go to the National Population Commission. Should be able to go to their website and be able to access all the data. Excuse me. And also for like health data, you should be able to go to NCDC data and be able to access data. Apart from data that are hyper, they are confidential data, you must be able to, access that. So what we do is that we are so very secretive about our data. So we must ensure that we have open access to data so that researchers can do that. We have data in abundance, and it's sad that when it comes to malaria uh, research, it is the UK people that are doing it for us. People that have not really had malaria in a long year. So we are the one that we are supposed. So it's not that we don't have data. We have data, but you know, the access to data for Nigerians is not there. So we must. Uh, the work I do, data drive my model, and data should drive our decision. Data should drive our implementation. Data should drive our development. And without that, we cannot move forward as a nation. So we must we must move from we just being a data dumping site, a non-accessibility to data to a situation whereby data drives our decisions uh, and whatever thing we want to do in our country. Mhm. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. 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 My morning is still morning here. Yeah. Enjoy your evening.